200 hours, local time. January 3rd, 2026. Caracas, Venezuela. The airspace over the capital is quiet, but it isn't empty. It is saturated with invisible energy. To the naked eye, the night sky is black. To the electromagnetic spectrum, it is a screaming, chaotic war zone. Inside Fuerte Tiuna, the massive military complex carved into the mountainous terrain of South Caracas, the Venezuelan defenses are supposedly impenetrable. This is the Ministry of Defense, the heart of the regime. Protecting it is a layered Soviet-era legacy, Russian-made S-300VM Ante-2500 missile batteries, and Book M2 mobile launchers. On paper, this is a fortress. The S-300VM is a beast. Its giant and Gladiator missiles can engage targets up to 155 miles away, creating an area denial bubble that should shred any approaching aircraft. Sitting on the tarmac at nearby airbases are Sukhoi Su-30MK2 Flankers, heavy air superiority fighters designed specifically to kill American jets. The regime believes in brute force. They believe that big radars and big missiles equal safety. But at 2:01, that belief is about to collide with a different philosophy: American precision and spectral dominance. The raid that captured Nicolas Maduro wasn't won by the soldier kicking down the door. It was won by the electrons that blinded the lock. Welcome to Operation Absolute Resolve. To understand why the Venezuelan defenses failed, you have to look at the chessboard hours before the first shot was fired. The United States didn't just guess where Maduro was, they built a map of his life down to the millimeter. For 6 months prior, U.S. Space Command had tasked low Earth orbit reconnaissance satellites to conduct persistent surveillance of Fuerte Tiuna. They weren't just taking photos, they were measuring thermal signatures to determine occupancy patterns and mapping the RF radio frequency emissions of the base's security grid. This data was fed into a classified facility in the United States where engineers constructed a full-scale physical replica of the safe house. Delta Force operators didn't just study blueprints, they walked the hallways physically, rehearsing the breach until their muscle memory moved faster than their conscious thought. But the final piece of the puzzle wasn't technical, it was human. A CIA asset, embedded deep within the inner circle, transmitted the final go code, confirming the target was static. The trap was set. Now, they just had to fly into the most heavily defended airspace in South America without triggering World War III. This is where the Invisible War began. The Venezuelan Integrated Air Defense System, IADS, relies on the S-300's grill-pan engagement radar. It's a phased array radar capable of tracking multiple targets and guiding missiles simultaneously. If you fly an F-16 into that web, you die. The F-16 is a fourth-generation fighter with a radar cross-section, RCS, the size of a beach ball. The S-300 eats beach balls for breakfast, so the U.S. didn't send F-16, they sent the F-35 Lightning II. Marine Corps F-35Bs, launching from austere bases in Puerto Rico, alongside Air Force F-35As, pushed into the outer edge of the Venezuelan engagement zone. But they didn't light up their radars, they didn't go active. Instead, they utilized the F-35's crown jewel sensor fusion. The F-35 isn't just a plane, it's a flying vacuum cleaner for data. Its Distributed Aperture System, DAS, and N/APG-81 AESA radar sucked in the electromagnetic emissions of the Venezuelan S-300S, triangulated their positions, and shared that targeting data instantly via MADL, Multifunction Advanced Data Link, to the entire fleet. They saw everything while radiating almost nothing, but stealth alone isn't enough. When you need to land helicopters, you need to blind the enemy. Enter the EA-18G Growlers and the EC-130H Compass Call. As the strike force approached, the Growlers unleashed a torrent of electronic warfare. They didn't just jam the radar, they flooded the S-300's receivers with broad-spectrum noise and false targets. On the Venezuelan scopes, the clear sky suddenly filled with hundreds of ghost contacts. The operators inside the command vehicles were looking at a snowstorm. Simultaneously, the EC-130H compass call severed the command and control links, essentially jamming the radio frequencies the Venezuelan commanders used to talk to their missile batteries. The nervous system of the Venezuelan defense network was severed. While the sky was being dismantled electronically, the ocean was being used as a massive strategic feint. Off the coast, the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group and the USS Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group began aggressive maneuvers. They lit up their radars, they made noise, they practically waved a flag saying, "We are invading from the sea." The Venezuelan military command panicked, swiveling their optical sensors and shifting their Su-30MK2S to the north, expecting a massive amphibious assault. They were looking the wrong way. Coming from the south, utilizing the blind spots created by the jagged terrain, was the 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers. They were flying MH-60M Blackhawks and massive MH-47G Chinooks. These aren't your standard transport helos. They are modified with terrain-following radar and advanced avionics that allow them to fly nap of the earth. We are talking about flying a helicopter 50 feet off the deck at 140 knots in pitch darkness. By hugging the contours of the valleys, the Night Stalkers stayed below the radar horizon of the S-300s. Even if the Venezuelan radars hadn't been jammed, they couldn't see through the mountains. The helicopters were literally hiding in the ground clutter. At 2:14, the MH-47Gs flared over the objective at Fuerte Tiuna. This is the moment where technology meets kinetics. The operators of Delta Force fast roped onto the roof and the courtyard. The Venezuelan guards who managed to raise their weapons were fighting blindly. They were equipped with standard night vision or simply flashlights. Delta Force was operating with GPNVG-18S, ground panoramic night vision goggles. If you've seen Zero Dark 30, you know the look. They have 4 tubes instead of 2. Standard NVGs give you a 40-degree field of view, like looking through toilet paper rolls. The GPNVGs provide a 97-degree field of view. In a close quarters battle, CQB environment, that peripheral vision is the difference between seeing a threat in the corner of the room or walking right past it. The operators owned the night. The team reached the hardened safe room deep inside the complex. The doors were reinforced steel designed to withstand standard explosives and small arms. It didn't matter. The breachers deployed thermal breaching tools, specialized rods that burn at temperatures exceeding 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They didn't blow the lock, they liquefied it. Within seconds, the heavy steel mechanism was molten slag and the door was kicked open. Inside, the resistance was minimal. The speed of violence, enabled by the total intelligence picture, had been too fast. The target was secured, zip-tied, and moved. But the most telling moment of the operation happened miles away at the Venezuelan airbases. As the extraction helicopters lifted off, carrying the HVT, the Venezuelan Su-30MK2 pilots were sitting in their cockpits screaming into their radios. They were trying to get permission to launch to intercept the Americans, but all they heard was static. The compass call aircraft had done their job. The chain of command was broken. The Russian-built flankers, capable of Mach 2 and armed with R-77 missiles, never even taxied to the runway. They were grounded not by bombs, but by silence. By the time the sun rose over Caracas, the MH-47Gs were safely landing on the deck of the USS Iwo Jima. The operation had taken less than 45 minutes. Operation Absolute Resolve proved a terrifying new reality of modern warfare. The Venezuelans had the hardware, they had the missiles, the jets, and the numbers. But they were fighting a 20th century war in a 21st century spectrum. They relied on heavy armor and radar power. The US relied on sensor fusion, electronic dominance, and data integration. The capture of Nicolas Maduro wasn't a triumph of firepower, it was a triumph of bandwidth. In the modern battle space, if you can't control the spectrum, you don't control anything.